everyone. Welcome to the Veterinary Business Podcast, your ultimate resource for developing a successful veterinary practice and career. I am Naren Arul Raja, the founder of the Veterinary Business Podcast and one of the co-hosts. On this podcast, we bring you insights and expertise from industry-leading doctors and thought leaders. We cover a wide range of topics including practice management, marketing strategies, leadership development, HR best practices, and more. Every listener of this podcast is welcome to visit www.veterinarybusinessinstitute.com for additional resources and tools to support your growth. This podcast is there to help veterinarians, practice owners, and practice managers. Remember, you can also go to iTunes and subscribe to our podcast. Today, I'm excited to have Kelly Cronin with me. She's a veterinary technician, Chief Advancement Officer of Vet Tech Life, and also the Operations Support Manager at National Veterinary Associates and CEO of Success Strategies Veterinary Consulting. Our topic today is training and education for profitability and retention. Training and education for profitability and retention. Without further ado, let me jump in and welcome Kelly. Kelly, welcome to the show. And take a minute to introduce yourself. Who are you? What got you into veterinary medicine? How long have you been in veterinary medicine? And
Sure.
where are you today?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, by the way. This is great. My name is Kelly Cronin. I am a VTS, or Veterinary Technician Specialist in Emergency and Critical Care. I have an MBA from Mississippi State University, and I've been in veterinary medicine for 30 plus years. So coming up on 32 years. I've enjoyed every aspect of veterinary medicine, starting from volunteering all the way up to now I'm an operations manager for 15 hospitals. And I absolutely love working with my teams. It's a very, very large team. And so that's been really exciting for me. And being part of NVA Now Ethos has given me a real opportunity to impact so many different team members and so many different teams. It's been a huge growth opportunity that way.
That's awesome. How long did you say you have been in this profession?
32 years.
Wow. So you have seen everything. You've seen the good, the bad, the ugly.
When they used to do heartworm in the granules that used to feed your dogs. So that's how old I am. I remember back to when ProHeart was originally coming out. And yeah, it's been a difference, definitely. I've seen a lot of different changes, but some of the big issues that we face in veterinary medicine have been going on for that whole time, and training is one of them. So that's part of why it's such a big passion for me, is because of the fact that it's been something that has been a problem forever.
Yeah. So the topic is training and education for profitability and retention. So let me ask you that. Let me get to the point. How is working on your team, implementing training programs, education, help with profitability for the practice? And also, how does it help improve retention for the practice?
Think about this past year when we saw that big 13% wage increase over all of veterinary medicine. Think about how much we were paying for new team members. And when you hire a new team member, you don't know what they look like. Like, you don't know their work ethic. You don't know if they know anything about how to actually do the things that you need them to do in practice. You don't know that their skill set matches up to the other team members that are on your team. You have this blank black box when you're hiring someone new. And it's not inexpensive hiring someone new. I don't know if you have had a chance at all of your respective practices to look at how much you spend on LinkedIn, but it's a chunk of change if you're doing really heavy recruiting for team members. And I'm not just talking about technicians. I'm talking about every single team member costs a lot for us to bring in, costs a lot for us to orient, costs a lot for us to, handhold them through their first little bit. If we have something like a training program where we can actually make sure that they stay with us because they're constantly doing something new, and then they're not, leaving veterinary medicine for bigger, greener pastures. Instead, we keep them in veterinary medicine, training them more and teaching them more, and they're a known entity for us. And we can bridge that gap so that we don't see that situation where a lot of our team members, get into a situation and don't feel comfortable because they don't have the training associated with it. I don't know, maybe you've had this experience, Aaron. When I first started in veterinary medicine, I absolutely remember being told that I was doing something wrong that I never got trained on. It just happens, right?
That's
No
yeah.
one told me how to do that, but I'm somehow doing it wrong. And when we think about that, that happens at every level. Can you imagine? So when our DVMs come out of vet school, everyone thinks that they're just ready to plug and play. But the reality is that in vet school, not a lot of DVMs have an opportunity to learn how to do client management. Not a lot of them know how to use the different PIM systems that we use. They might not have ever seen some of the things that we do in our practices. And then can you imagine how daunting it is to come in and then have to help these pets when you don't even know how to use the X-ray machine, or when all of these little tiny pieces, or you don't know how to use the phone system? Unfortunately, it's just one of those situations where a lot of times we believe that either we're hiring people who have enough education that they don't need any training and we're letting everything happen to chance, or we're really thinking about what we're doing for training, but we're only doing it for some of our team members. And that can be really daunting. I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of different places where I just haven't wanted to stay in that practice or in that place because of the fact that, I wasn't getting the right onboarding or the right training or the right introduction to make sure that I'm fitting where I am. Now, if you have that retention issue, if you have a team that's not fully a team, or if you have a team that's not trained very well, or if you have a team where only one person is trained, that truly impacts profitability because all of that overtime falls to the technician who knows how to do everything, right? Or the doctor is impacted because they're not able to do all of the treatment plan that they have lined out for this patient. I can't tell you how often, I'll walk into the clinic and they'll say, "Oh goodness, thank goodness you're here because we need to do X, Y, Z." That's just not okay. It needs to be a situation where the whole team is being utilized and everyone is able to do more and they can do some of those higher level profit and higher skilled things because they can stay in practice longer and because they can impact their practice better and because that practice can really reap the benefits.
Oh, absolutely. Let me kind of put you on the spot, and let me ask you a question. I totally understand how it's like practice is like a machine, right? Any business is a machine. A well-oiled machine is so much better than a car that breaks down every 3 minutes, every 3 hours, right? I mean, like, who wants to be in that car, right? Most people will say, forget it, I'm going to throw this car, or I'm not going to be part of this car. I would rather stay at home and watch TV than get into this car, right? I mean, they just give up.
Right.
So I get it. So I understand why training, why teams that are, working as a well-oiled machine makes a ton of sense. Like, have you seen somebody who really focuses on this problem and does an excellent job? What do they do? Like, let's start with what does amazing look like? Or if you haven't seen anybody who's amazing yet, but at least what would you like to see? I mean, having been in this profession for 32 years.
Amazing is a team that has a skill-based training program and potentially even some classroom style learning associated with it. So amazing is a team where the education is first and foremost in everything that they do. Their rounds are interactive. Their rounds include everyone. They're always thinking about how to make sure that their team really understands the care that they're giving and the reasons that they decided on that care. And it really is a culture from top to bottom. So not only do they have a training program, not only do they have a training program for every level of team member, including the doctors, including maybe a video training program on how to use the PIM system for their doctors, or a training program where a lead technician sits with their doctors in order to go through how to create estimates, or a training program where they're just given all of the nuts and bolts of who their team is and how to utilize their team. A training program that absolutely thinks about how do we make sure that they're not spending a million hours learning something that they could be taught in 5 minutes. And how do we make sure that every single person on that team is being utilized to the full of their potential? So amazing is making sure that we are constantly doing better with it. No training program is a one and done. You always have to think about, hey, are there new techniques that we need to add to that training program? Are there improvements that we can add to that training program? Do we need to start thinking about different learning styles with different people involved in that training program? So one of the big things that I'd say with Amazing is that it's a training program that's a living, breathing thing, and it really encompasses every single person at the hospital, and it encompasses outside resources. So making sure that our whole team has access to continuing education. Our whole team has access to things that reinvigorate them in the hospital so that they want to really stay in veterinary medicine and stay at that particular hospital. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking of Apple, and Apple usually is amazing at everything it does, right? I mean, so I'm thinking of their training program.
Mm-hmm.
They have a few jobs. There's a security guard. That's easy. They hire an outside person. They don't even hire their own people for security because they want to know these are expensive devices. Nobody walks away with them. So somebody's keeping an eye. Then there are those genius bar people, right? They're the ones who picks the products for you and, work with you. So I assume they have to get really trained on every type of product, or they get assigned through the automated system. Oh, he only knows how to deal with Macs, or he's only going to get Macs, or he only knows iPhones, he's only going to get iPhones, and she can do everything, so she's going to get everything. So I'm assuming there's very rigorous training and certification programs before you get to work on a Genius Bar. And then, of course, the first level is being able to talk about their products. There are people who just walk around and answer all your questions, right? I think, and then there are people who do those learning sessions. So there are a few job descriptions, and I bet there is very specific training programs and certifications, and I bet they plan it in their business. Let's say you get hired, I bet you don't start working for 2 weeks till you finish the necessary training, right? That's why they have hundreds of stores all over the world, and anywhere you go, you get pretty good experience, and their customer satisfaction is like 97%. So, anyways, I guess that's like, to me, an ideal, an awesome situation. So I guess a lot of doctors don't think about investing in training or training as an important part of their cost structure. They just, like you said, they assume people should be able to know anything and do everything. Like everything in my head should be in their head. But Apple realizes that's not the case. What this person knows.
That's a really important point there. When you're talking about this, you're really talking about how to make that customer experience so incredibly great. One of the things that we see fairly often is that our training programs only have skills. And the reality is that when we think about training programs, we also have to think about the soft skills. We have to think about how our teams are actually interacting with our clients. We can save so much money just in client satisfaction, in return clients. We know that the price of a standard dog coming in for its entire lifetime, the last time it was done was a few years ago. So forgive the fact that we've probably seen some price creep, but it's $8,000 for the lifetime of a pet. If we can maintain that relationship for that whole entire time, that's a huge amount of profitability that we're going to keep in our house, right? The other thing that we have to really think about is the fact that if we can keep down the amount of time that they have to spend with a client because they're not dealing with something that they caused, right? They're proactively giving good service. That can be a huge savings in terms of how we actually get things done and how productive we are as a team as well. And if I might, can I give one quick example of how
please.
it really financially impacts? So it was many, many moons ago, and I will tell you that we had a training program in place. We did not have double signatures on our prescriptions, and unfortunately, one of our team members was signed off, but was not fully trained on filling a script. Unfortunately, that script was the wrong medication, and we ended up having to hospitalize that pet for many days. And actually even overnight hospitalized with the ER, so significantly higher amount of money that we were paying out for management of this pet that really, it all stemmed from a $15 prescription. This is way back when, remember. Scripts should be more now, but way back when. And so when we think about that, had we had a little bit more checks and balances on our training program, we would have had a situation where that team member was able to recognize that 2 medications with an M are not the same thing. They would have been able to recognize right patient, right dose, right time, right duration of medication and right contraindications right, we would have had a situation where that team member knew enough to apply what that medication was for to that patient's potential diagnosis and really put two and two together that, hey, this is the wrong medication. This is going to cause a problem for this pet. Unfortunately, they didn't have as much of that background information as they needed in order to do that, but it would have saved us thousands upon thousands of dollars. And I can tell you, for a team member of her level, that training program would not have cost thousands upon thousands of dollars to put into place because they're really training side by side. So it wouldn't have been that much time off the floor compared to how much it actually cost us overall. And that's just one example, but you'll see many, many examples when you start doing that training program and really making sure that your team members can put things together. And I like to really think about the fact that when we're thinking about training programs, making sure that it's not a how clinic, that it's a why clinic, knowing the reasons behind all of the things that we do and how we actually do them, knowing those reasons are going to allow your team members to think critically and to really adapt to the situation and potentially do better for our patients.
Thank you. Appreciate it. How many practices have you trained or worked with? Just give me a ballpark. I don't want an exact number.
So we put 40 different training programs into place just at Advanced Animal Hospital going into MVP. When they became MVP, we put 40 training programs into place.
That's awesome.
That's one hospital group that I worked with.
Right.
I lecture at national conventions, so Lord only knows how many have come out of those talks.
Right. Let me ask you this. The reason I asked you the question is we have levels, right? There are people in, let's say the amazing is level 5, right?
Right.
And then there are people in level 0, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. Like typically, what is the worst you have seen? And what would you tell that person? Like, okay, just do this for now. Like, forget about, amazing. Just, I don't want to even go there. Let's just start here. You are here. Let's go here. Can you just help me walk you? Assuming some of our listeners are in that stage. I just want your help, so that they can at least start thinking about things the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. So the worst that you can see is a clinic that really has nothing. They have nothing in place for training, or maybe even a step worse is the clinic that says, I only hire licensed technicians. I don't need a training program. Okay. Now, there's some dangerous words in veterinary medicine, right? How we've always done it is a hugely dangerous phrase in veterinary medicine. And the reason that I really get on this is because of the fact that I have 32 years in. I have a VTS in emergency and critical care. I'm going to tell you that last week I was in resident rounds. I was in I can't remember if it's resident rounds or an M&M, and I learned something new. You can't spend a lifetime in veterinary medicine and ever think that you've known it all. Uh-huh. There's something new that you're going to learn. And so when we're talking about those clinics that potentially don't have anything and they just need a place to start, really, there are a lot of places online where there's just skills lists. You can certainly use that skills list to start building out a skill level. There are tons and tons of online resources that people can use to actually build into their training program for some of the didactic learning. There are tons of continuing education events that they can use to build in some of that didactic learning. And I will absolutely say that starting anywhere is better than starting nowhere. And when we think about this, right, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I've been building this training program. I've been doing it for months. The reality is that you really only need that first level to get started. You can constantly keep advising more or adding more. You can have people grandfather in. You don't have to have a fully baked plan in order to get somewhere with that. And if your clinic has something to start with, so if your clinic has ever done a training program in the past, utilize that training program to build off of. Never burn it to the ground, because someone put their blood, sweat, and tears into that, and you will find out who it is the moment that you burn it to the ground and start working on a new one. Whereas if you incorporate that and really utilize that as your basis for what to build off of, that's a way, way easier place to be in.
Thank you. Let me ask you this. Let's switch gears and let's talk about vet techs, right? Veterinary technicians. what are some of the ongoing and continuous type of education you would recommend? I assume every vet tech would be quote unquote certified or licensed. And then, of course, but you're saying you need to have ongoing, right? So talk more about that. Like, what would you recommend?
There's a couple different things there. Really, one of the things that I'll say I recommend is I very much recommend if you are on the job trained or if you don't have a license, it is so easy these days to do an online program that's going to fit into your lifestyle. And beyond that, the more and more that we get really serious about making sure that our states uphold the licensing, it's going to be harder and harder to be a technician, I'm using air quotes, without that license. So really think about what that license is going to add. Now, a lot of people say, hey, I don't need that license because of the fact that my clinic doesn't pay any differently, but that's not going to be the case long term. As states get more and more specific about what technicians are allowed to do, licensed technicians are allowed to do, it's going to be a situation where that really becomes the divider as to pay opportunities. Being someone who's very much into personal finance, that's my first thing is absolutely go for as much as you possibly can. A lot of clinics these days actually provide scholarships to help you get licensed. Take advantage of everything that you can there. There are great online programs like San Juan and Penn Foster and SPJC. There's lots of different things that can really help you out there. There's lots of good technician prep, so vet tech prep and some of these that can help you pass the test if you're a bad test taker. I certainly am. And then once you've thought about that licensing, really thinking about, hey, do I want to go further in the modality that I'm really comfortable with? And if you haven't looked into it, really thinking about maybe pursuing a veterinary technician specialty, because that is really a way to continue learning and continue gaining some momentum that way. And if we're talking about continuing education, I have a very big soft spot for Vet Tech Life continuing education. There's a fair bit on our online platform that are ready on demand. We have some management training, we have some speaking training, all kinds of things like that. And we also have a technicians cruise that is by technicians for technicians. We do have doctors join us fairly often, and that really focuses on some of the higher level technical skills as well. So we'd love for everyone to join us on that. Very affordable, very fun. Come on board. We're going to Cozumel and Costa Maya next year.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Let me switch gears. What about team training? Are there any types of training that you think the entire team has to be part of and learn together? And what type of things do you recommend for team training?
Soft skills that we talked about and teamwork, those types of things are the things that our whole team really needs. So de-escalation of our clients, making sure that we, strive for excellence in terms of communication with each other, making sure that we have that communication ability for, dealing with some of the big issues that arise in our practice as well. So those are the things that I really like to focus on for full teams. There's definitely some good classes out there. There's some good CE out there. Probably not as many on demand as I would like, but we're getting better and better about having some of those soft skills actually readily available on some of these recorded talks.
Makes sense. Thank you so much. I learned a lot. So let's say if somebody wants to contact you, follow you, kind of see what you're up to, we're going to provide lots of information based on your bio and so forth. Any specific things you want to leave them with? And of course, what are your final thoughts, that you want our listeners to take away and remember?
I think the biggest thing is that reach out if you have any questions. The biggest thing that you can do for yourself is look at the person who's next on the rung from you, right? You can look and say, hey, here's someone who is one step above where I'm at. And instead of getting frustrated or wanting to leave the profession, really think about, hey, how can I strive for something that's going to reinvigorate my love for veterinary medicine? Reach out to that person. That you will never have a situation, and I guarantee this, where you reach out to someone and they hate the fact that you did that. Everyone feels good about someone who says, hey, I would like to be where you're at. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Everyone feels good about that. And there are so many people out there willing to mentor and willing to help people grow. Just feel free to certainly reach out to me anytime. You can find me on Facebook. I have Vet Tech Life. It's a Facebook page, an Instagram page. There is a website, www.vettechlife.com. And just really feel free to reach out anytime. I love to hear from people, and I love to see how I can help.
Thank you so much. I really learned a lot today, Kelly, from you. And I think the fact that you've been there, but still you're as passionate today as you were, when you started, you love what you do and you love making a difference. And I do agree that, the team and a well-trained team is the glue that, keeps everything together and keeps that machine running. So thank you for everything you're doing. So I also want to take a minute to thank our listeners. We can't do what we do without you. So if you like this podcast, share it on social media. We're on your LinkedIn, Facebook group, anywhere you congregate, and share ideas with your colleagues. Of course, write a review for us. That'll help other doctors and other practice owners like you listen to this podcast and discover this podcast. Till we meet again, have a wonderful, amazing day, and we'll see you in a week. I'm your co-host, Naren Arul Raja.